92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
All because of a fancy bike?
It's not just a bike. Peloton makes treadmills too.
All treadmills are the same.
Our treadmills can adjust speed and incline automatically, so you never break your stride. Whether you're squeezing in a power walk or training for a marathon, Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try the Peloton Tread risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Jay Scott. This is The Hook Rocks, the ultimate rock community podcast. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying healthy. Hope you're staying safe. Across this country, there's a multitude of things going on. I just hope that you're keeping a smile on your face and you're doing well. And, you know, I know a lot of people are struggling out there trying to make sense of it all. Just reach out to somebody if you're having trouble. Talk to people. Have that conversation. Call them on the phone. Don't text. Don't social media message them. Have that live conversation because it'll do a world of good for you and probably the other person. So hope everyone's doing well on the West Coast. It just seems to be totally out of control as we're recording this episode tonight. I hope by the time this airs, things are better. Things are more under control over there in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. So our thoughts are with you. We're pulling for you. And hopefully there's a fix for it coming soon, either rain or just, the firemen, the true heroes in this all are able to put all that stuff out. But as I've always said, we are here for you. We're talking rock and roll. We offer the escape that you need for those passionate about music, for those passionate about rock music. We continue to discuss timely rock topics that are affecting you and bringing on great interviews such as the one we're about to have today. It's the second time we've talked to a member of a band in New Zealand, and we're going back and we're talking to Charlie Wallace, the guitar player for the band Black Smoke Trigger. What's going on, Charlie?
Hey, how's it going, man? Great to be here.
Yeah, man, thank you for doing this. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Chris Corradetti, who is a huge fan of you guys, who just got a care pack from you guys, and he's all over Twitter posting pictures, and he sent me the DM about it, which looks wicked cool. But he was the one that introduced me to you guys, and ever since then, I've just been a huge fan. Caught in the Undertow was a great single. You just released one today. You Can't Have It All, which is just an awesome video. It's got like this whole Game of Thrones type of vibe to it. It's really cool. So thanks again for doing this. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, man. Yeah, as I said, it's awesome to be here and looking forward to seeing what you're going to pick from my brain.
Well, we always begin the same way with a new time or a first-time guest that's new to the show. And that question is basically the essence of the podcast, which is just like every rock song has a moment that sucks you in. Every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a band, a song, a performance, or an album that pulls them into rock and roll and hooks them on rock and roll. What was it for you?
For me, I was into skateboarding when I was like 13, and I got out like a skateboarding VHS videotape, and on that, a song played, and I had no idea what the song was, and I went through the credits of the song of the video over and over and over and over again, and just trial and error my way until I found out that song was "Paranoid" by Black Sabbath. And when I heard that intro of that song, that was that was my moment, that I knew that I wanted to play guitar, that I knew I wanted to play that song on guitar. So that was really the absolute crystal clear moment for me.
Where did it go from there? You mentioned Paranoid. What came after that? Talk about your evolution. What was your evolution into rock and roll?
Well, I mean, the first thing I did was try to download that song off the internet, and that didn't quite work out because I'd heard you could do it, but I didn't know exactly where to go and do it. And the first thing that came up was a guitar tab. So, I picked up the guitar and just started trying to play it. And then from there, it was, like looking back at my dad's old records of, AC/DC and Eric Clapton, and then just started just falling in love with, a lot of 70s music. So, I really went through Alice Cooper, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Kiss. And, that was really where I found I really, found my identity in a way. And then, from that, it was, just slowly moved almost through the generations of rock, slowly went into, into the 80s sort of style stuff that was obviously really inspired by all the bands I just mentioned. And then, so, going into, bands like, Guns N' Roses and Skid Row, and so just following that evolution on, and then just fell in love with, grunge music. And then, it was all retrospective for me. So I didn't experience this as it was coming out, and then so in the same way, though, it was, I still kind of experienced it in linear fashion because I fell in love with 70s music first, and then just sort of, went through the decades like that.
It's interesting when you start pulling back the orange on rock music, where you start with a band that you like, and then you go on to what influenced them, and then you pull back the orange even further and go into what influenced them. And you can go on this rabbit hole for a long time and just listen to all different sorts of music, but it all comes together in what people are playing on albums and songs and how they write. And you can hear the influences once you start to listen to it. I mean, there's been so many bands over the decades where I've done that. And then when you re-listen to what you started with, you hear it completely different.
Yeah, definitely.
So what made you want to be in a band? I mean, you talked about picking up a guitar, listening, getting in all this music. What was the moment where you wanted to get on stage and perform?
Well, it kind of seemed like a natural evolution, like looking at videos of, these guys playing on stage, playing guitar, like the song I mentioned, Tony, with Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi playing Paranoid. I'm going, wow, I want to do that. Just the power that he seems to have, and, the control over, this audience that was just having such a good time. That was something that I wanted to experience. And then, so just straight away just started putting bands together, and pretty much I've been almost in bands for as long as I've been playing guitar. I was only playing guitar for, 8 or 9 months before I was actually up on stage playing. So I sort of jumped straight into it.
In jumping straight into it, how was that? I mean, you mentioned that you weren't playing guitar very long. You must have been pretty confident in your ability, or was it just trial by fire?
Well, man, I just literally, I've always been a pretty obsessive person. And so whatever I do, I just go for with it 200%. And then so even though I had, essentially only played guitar for 8 or 9 months before getting up on stage and playing, it was, I had just literally, I'd probably played, more than people who play for 10 years because it was all I did. And, getting up on stage the first time was, was hilarious, because you got no idea what to expect. And I was absolutely terrified. And, obviously the more you get on stage, now I absolutely love it. This was a long time ago, but, it was just one of those things of just, getting up there and just learning how to be in a band, and then learning the kind of people you want to be in a band with, and learning that, sometimes people want to be in different bands, but, you happen to be in the same band and it's not going to work out. And so it was definitely it's interesting, this is obviously, back when I'm in high school and, just leaving high school. going through all this kind of stuff. And so it was, you definitely learn a lot playing with other musicians.
What about writing? You know, when you started to develop your influences and you started to listen to more music and you're playing on stage and you're coming up with your own licks, what was that like?
Well, I mean, the first song I remember writing, I just got so excited. I remember the moment of like being in my room. I lived in this little kind of dungeony concrete room, and it had like really shallow ceilings and just, you know, metal posters just lining the walls. And I remember just coming up with something, you know, learning some, I think I was, you know, trying to learn a Metallica song, and I just started playing it completely wrong and was like, hey, this isn't Metallica song. This is something new. And just getting really excited, and then, you know, trying to put some lyrics to it. And the feeling that I got from that was, you know, it was just a really, really exciting feeling. Like I just created something from nothing. Now there's this thing. It's a song. And then, you know, from there I just started developing, you know, more and more songs. And then so in my bands, you know, would obviously be playing originals and, you know, a mix of originals and covers when I was, like, you know, and still in high school. And it was, you know, just looking at songs and going like, right, well, what songs do I like? You know, what's the vibe? What does that make me feel? And can I create something from scratch that's going to, you know, have that sort of same vibe? And am I going to be just as excited playing this stuff as, you know, playing my favorite songs? And then so for a long time, I was, you know, I'd always be pretty much like the sole writer in a band. That's something different here in Black Smoke Trigger, which I really like, is just how collaborative we are.
Well, let's dive into Black Smoke Trigger, because you guys are phenomenal. I mean, all the music that I hear from you guys is incredible. How did you guys start? What's the history of Black Smoke Trigger?
Well, me and the singer Baldrick, it's kind of funny, right? I was in this band called Horror Set, and we were a three-piece band, and I was the singer. The reason why I was the singer was because I couldn't find a singer. And, you know, I live in a pretty small town, relatively, you know, especially compared to, you know, like the entire population of New Zealand is like 4.5, 5 million, you know, and it's about like 60,000 people here in my hometown. And with that, I couldn't find someone who was going to be, you know, dreaming big enough and had the skills to do it. So I was like, right, I'm going to be the singer. So I was in a three-piece band, and we, you know, like started going out and playing, you know, playing shows, and we got quite a big following. Went over to Europe, played some shows. And then I started, you know, I went to high school with Baldrick, and then I didn't really see him for a little while. And then one day he just turned up to one of our gigs, and then he just started turning up more and more. And he ended up being like a pretty big fan of what we were doing in that band. And then so he'd come on road trips and we'd play out of town shows and stuff. And then this one night we had a gig, and I was at a friend's place afterwards. We're having this after party, and then he just pulls his headphones out of his pocket, and these big bulky headphones. I got no idea how he even put them in there. And he says, "Hey man, can you ever listen to this? I want to see what you sing." And I was like, "Okay." And so I chuck them on. I was like, "What is this?" He goes, "Oh, some demos that I've recorded." And then I was listening to it, and I was thinking, man, whoever's singing on this sounds absolutely phenomenal. And so I said to him, I was like, "Who's singing?" And he says, I'm singing on these, but I mean, I need to find a singer like this. Yeah, I mean, I'm a guitar player. I need to find a singer." And I was just like, "Dude, you need to sing these songs. Like, this sounds amazing. This sounds incredible." And he was not convinced. I mean, because, you know, he just sung on it just in the same way that I'd sung in my band, just because I needed a singer. And then so, you know, with that, then my drummer was there, and his name's Matt, and he'd heard these demos as well. And he was like, "Man, like I'm gonna play drums for this. Like this sounds awesome." And then so I ended up actually playing guitar. We kind of ended up with this like side project with with Baldrick, but he just still didn't want to be the singer. And then it just got to the point where Adrian, who was playing the bass in that band, was like, we're having some drinks one time. He's like, "How on earth are we going to get Baldrick to sing, because we need him to sing. Like, he has this amazing voice, and we need him to realize it because it just sounds so amazing. You know, how can we do it? And then so I said, let's just get another guitar player. Let's, like, almost semi-kick him out of his position in his own band so that he's forced to be the singer. And then, and that seemed to work. And then it was, we just started, you know, playing shows, and that band was called All the King's Horses. You know, we only played sort of a few shows around, you know, around Napier, our hometown locally, but that was just sort of enough for Borderic to sort of get that singing bug. And then I said to Borderic, I was like, man, if anything ever happens to that band, you know, would you sing for, you know, my band, Horrorset? And he was like, yeah, man, absolutely. And that band, the other band kind of crumbled, and, you know, Borderic started singing for Horrorset. And then from there, you know, as we sort of, the band was sort of like doing a few shows, nothing outrageous. And then we needed a fill-in drummer for some shows we were playing out of town. And I called up a friend of mine, Josh, who is the drummer of Black Smoke Trigger. He filled in for us like one time, like about 5 or 6 years prior to this. And then so he just jumped on, and it just, everything just felt absolutely right. And then so we had a bass player at the time, Ben, and he was kind of more of a guitar player playing bass, a really great musician, but just didn't quite have the bass feel that we needed. And then so when it came time to really kick into things, and we decided that we were going to start essentially from scratch, throw out everything, start from scratch, and, you know, who's the best bass player that we know? And that was Dan. And then so we got together, we wrote for 3 months, we hit over to Nashville, recorded with Michael, and that was sort of how Black Smoke Trigger came to be.
Was it immediately a collaborative effort when you guys were writing songs, or was that something that, as a band, that you've decided that's the way you guys wanted to move forward?
Yeah, it definitely sort of just happened with everybody being able to collaborate, because everybody in the band is such a great musician. I mean, like, these guys, everybody is a great guitar player. And then so everybody can come up with riffs. Like, everybody can pick up the bass and play the bass. I'm not going to say everybody can play the drums, or else you do not want to see me behind the drum kit. I'll tell you that right now. But you know, everybody can contribute in, you know, for instance, pretty much like with every kind of instrument. And then so straight away, the way we kind of just started was just coming up with a whole bunch of riffs, and me and Dan would just throw the guitar back and forth, and then, you know, figure out like the song structure and all that. And then we'd jump in the studio, and then we just jam, and we just jam and jam and jam and jam until, you know, everybody was throwing in ideas, and then all of a sudden we had a song. And then so it was this, it never quite had anything like this, where, you know, normally I'd sort of sit there and I'd just craft it myself over and over and over and over again, and then, you know, just show the band how it went. But with Black Smoke Trigger, you know, everybody contributes. Like, we might have somebody come in with a song concept that's, you know, pretty well done. We might go in the studio just with one riff, and by the end of the day, we've got a whole song. We just jam, and just by jamming, it just seems to everything just comes together, and it's effortless, and it just flows. And the thing I really love about it is that, you know, when you got these, you know, we got Black Smoke Trigger songs, they are Black Smoke Trigger songs. They're not songs by just one band member. You know, every single band member has their own stamp on every single song, which is something that I really like.
That's interesting, because everybody kind of has a stake in the game, right? Everybody, you know, has to believe in the effort that you're putting through. You know, I mean, I know there's probably circumstances out there where, you know, someone who doesn't really have much of an impact on the songwriting process may feel less part of a band because they're not writing, you know, they're not part of that writing process. Whereas you guys, it's more like a brotherhood with the four of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, like I said before, it just flows, and it's just easy, you know. And then so, you know, I like the fact that, you know, for instance, with, you know, You Can Have It All, like the video that we just released, it's like I can break it down to, you know, individual parts of the song and who contributed that idea, you know. And then so, of course, now, when I just listen to it, it's the song, but it's just so cool to see the pieces of the puzzle all together as one thing that, not one member could have written that song. It's, just such a collaborative effort. And that's the way that, all of our songs are.
When everybody brings different things to the table in a band and everybody has different influences, how are you able to mesh the influences that all you have? Is it just the way it is with Black Smoke Trigger? Is it an effort to do so, or is it just blend the way it's supposed to blend in terms of it just, it's organic?
Well, the way I kind of think about it is it's like we already, as musicians, we've got our influences that have built us up to be, who we are. And so when we pick up our instruments, or, Broderick's singing, or, Josh is hitting sticks, is that all of that stuff is just organically there. And then so we're already put together in the blender. And so all we have to do is just turn the blender on, and then this stuff comes out. And then it's really interesting doing that, because it's like one of those things where it comes out as a Black Smoke Trigger song. And so, for instance, no matter how much of an influence, one band or, a bunch of musicians might have had on one member, it's when the song comes out at the end, it's a song that sounds like, the four of us, because that's, because everybody, as I say, has got like a stamp on the song.
The EP is called Set It Off. This is now the second single that you guys released today. You Can Have It All. How was that recording process? How long did it take you guys to come up with that? And what was the decision behind doing an EP rather than a full-length album?
Well, so we recorded for 2 months in Nashville with Michael Wagener. He's done so many of our favorite albums, and so he really liked what we were doing, and so it's an absolute natural choice. And we're going to be working with him again for our first full-length album that we're working on at the moment. So we're really excited about that. And so we arrived in Nashville. We got an Airbnb. We stayed there for 2 months, and the whole process was really incredible. Like working with Michael and just developing the songs, and coming out the end with something that we're all really, really proud of was just a fantastic experience. I mean, literally, we're working 7 days a week. We had one day we're in the studio, but on that day we'd be there, crafting our songs more and more. And like being in the studio with a guy who's literally a legend, and this gold and platinum records just hang on the walls. It was very inspirational. Obviously, having Mick Mars come in and play on the Way I'm Wired was awesome as well. And just sort of being in that environment for us, being out of New Zealand, just really helped us to focus 100% on the task that we were doing. And then so the decision to do an EP instead of an album was because we felt like this was, we wanted to really kick the door down with, our best leading foot. And originally we were planning on doing less songs, but the way that it worked out, Michael just said, you guys need to release all of these songs. You cannot hold any of these back. These are, they all are Black Smoke Trigger songs. They all sound great. You need to release this. This is how you're going to, make your mark and kick out Black Smoke Trigger to the world. And then so we, obviously 7 songs is a long EP. It's like just under that threshold. And with the vinyl, we have a bonus track on there. So there's actually 8 tracks. And then so it was like a decision to say like that. This is Black Smoke Trigger. This is who we are. This is like the first collaborative effort of the band, and kind of like a mission statement to. Literally like Set It Off is literally it means for us. We brainstormed, in Nashville, like what do we call it, and we went around a whole bunch of stuff, and it was like Set It Off was what we landed on, because that's really what this EP is about. Is just like we're planning on being in this game for a long time, and we just wanted to blow shit up, really. And that's like explained that to the designer, and he was like, "I got an idea of this Molotov cocktail about to blow up." So that's essentially what we're portraying with that. And then so we want to have like a nice evolution from that to our album, and we've got different perspectives now on just the world we live in, and the way that we write together, and in everything. So it's like we've grown so much. We've essentially lived with each other for like a year and a half, like 2 years now, and then so it's one of those things that now our collaborative writing is getting better and better and better, and then so we feel like this album that we're working on now, when we release this is going to allow us just to get a huge amount of momentum. And releasing the EP to start with is just a great like sort of building the on ramp, and then so this way we've built the on ramp, and then now we're ready to go and record this album. Once that album's recorded, then we're just going to be out there as soon as we can. We're going to be touring the world, and just promoting the hell out of it, because we stand behind the songs that we're writing. We love the songs on the EP. We can't wait to get out there and perform those again. And this album we all feel like is going to be something special.
How did you guys get hooked up with Michael Wagener?
I was in Nashville hanging with a friend of mine, Rick Barker, who he was originally Taylor Swift's first manager, and he's an awesome dude. And so we'd just be hanging out, taking to cigar bars, and I kept on going to America, and he kept on saying, "Man, look, you keep going over to the US, and you're not like coming to Nashville. Nashville's the music capital of the world. You got to come here." And then so I went out there and stayed with him, and then a friend of mine, Ariel, who she plays in Eric Johnson's band, and just phenomenal guitar player herself. She's really like one of the best guitar players I've ever seen. She was there, and I saw that she was there. I was like, "Hey, let's catch up." And then she says, "Hey, do you want to meet Michael Wagener?" And I was like, "Yes, please." So she took me out to a studio. She said, "I just get the feeling you guys are going to get along." And opening the door and just seeing like No More Tears, Master of Puppets, like Skid Row, like all these albums just like draped on the walls was awesome to see. In the house that he built, essentially, like with all these records, and just seeing his studio in Nashville, and talking with him, we just got along really well. And then so Ariel says that Charlie plays in a rock band. He says, "Oh, you should send me through some stuff." So I sent him through some tracks that me and Baldrick had written, and he says, "Hey man, I really like your stuff. It's right up my alley. If you ever want to work together, let me know." And then it was like right there, I was like, "Okay, sweet, let's book it in. Let's do it." And then so that was like a really great way to really kick into things, and really, that's why I said, I said at the beginning, we had 3 months of writing, and then we head straight over, because it was one of those things like, right, well, hey, if Michael Wagener says he wants to record us, then we better get our asses into gear, get some songs, and get over to Nashville.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great opportunity, and he's, like you said, man, he's a legend in terms of rock albums and what he's done over the years and throughout the decades. How did the opportunity with Mick Mars happen?
Well, Michael was and still is recording Mick's solo album, and Mick lives relatively close to Nashville, and literally we got one song we're recording, and Michael just turns around and goes, "Mick would really like this song. Should I see if he wants to play on it?" And that was really as simple as it was. And then we were like, "Yeah, hell yeah." So he called him up, and he had listened to the track, and he says, "Yeah, I'll come do that." So he came in and hung out at the studio for the day, and played a whole bunch of stuff, and that's sort of just how it went.
That had to be a pretty surreal experience with him sitting there. I mean, you've got Michael Wagener producing your EP, you've got Mick Mars, playing on one of your songs. You're in the music capital of America. That sounds like a dream.
Oh, 100%, man. I mean, it's like we're, like 4 dudes from a small town here in Napier, New Zealand. And so to leave here, to write the songs here and to, jump over and just be, as I say, in that environment, it was absolutely amazing. It's like, that's what we've all been working towards. And then so, to be there, and it's kind of like a testament that we had been doing the right stuff. The fact that Mick was there, the fact that we're working with Michael, it just showed us that we're on the right track. And then, just being able to say, like, even just being on a plane his guitars, like he's like telling, like how it's all set up and this kind of stuff. And, for a guitar geek like myself, it's just so much fun to be playing the guitar that I was, that I watched as a teenager on TV, watching like DVDs of Motley Crue live, and I'm now just in the studio playing the guitar, and that guitar is on Black Smoke Trigger's Get It Off record. So there's definitely a surreal element to it.
It's amazing too because he's such an underrated player, and his tone is so recognizable, and he's one of those guys that from album to album he's always trying to come up with a different tone or a better tone than he did before. He's always playing around with that, and that's got to be just a surreal moment.
Oh, absolutely. And such a nice dude as well. Absolutely. Like it was amazing just to hang out. And, it was definitely a highlight for us for sure.
2020 has been a terrible year, to just put it bluntly, in terms of people kind of having to put their life on pause. When you talk to musicians, that basically is their life right now. Their life's on pause. They don't know when they're going to be able to play live. They've got albums that they've recorded that they're hanging on to, that they're pushed back the release date into 2021. You ask them, what's the plan once this pandemic is over? The common answer is, we just don't know. We have an idea. We don't know when that's going to happen. America has had difficulty in getting a handle on COVID-19. When you look at New Zealand has been in the opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, they've been able to really get it locked down, and other than a few cases over the last month or so, they've pretty much have gotten rid of the pandemic. I remember speaking with Paul Martin from Devilskin when this first started back in late March, early April, and he talked about just kind of doing the same thing every day and trying to figure out, what's next. I mean, they just released a new album in April, and they had plans to tour Europe and possibly come to America. And again, they had to put, their plans on pause. What has it been like for Black Smoke Trigger? I know you guys released the EP, and of course, your country has been dealing with it a lot differently than we have here in America. But when you kind of look across the globe, because the rock scene right now is a global rock scene. It's not just, the LA Hollywood scene or the Seattle grunge scene. What do you feel, is coming in the next year, 2021, for Black Smoke Trigger? And where do you guys see yourself going? Is that still unknown, or is there some sort of plan?
Well, we had, we toured last year with Devilskin, had a great time with them. And then, we're also touring with a band called Like a Storm, and as we toured with Like a Storm again in February, March, and that was actually March. And then after the first short leg of the tour, it got pulled. And then so at that point, we're like, right, well, let's wait and reschedule things. And obviously, as the world got crazier and crazier, then we decided, like, look, after this, we were going to work on our album. So let's just make the album our 100% focus. And it's one of those things for us where we're like, I've got like a studio here at my place. All the guys are here right now. Literally, they come here every day, and we're working on songs together. And then so we're looking at it in a way of, right, how can we make this a positive? So the positive is that we are stuck here to write this album. So let's write the best album that we can possibly make. And then as soon as possible, as soon as we feel like we're comfortable with all the songs, let's get back over to Nashville and let's record this album with Michael. Now, once we do that, we obviously, once we get that album completely done, we don't know where touring's going to be at. So what we do know is that we can record a whole bunch of music videos for the album, and we can, obviously just promote the hell out of it, online, because even though we can't, necessarily be physically in front of everybody, we can be in front of everybody on everybody's screen. So how can we focus on that? And then as soon as those shows start happening again, we want to be touring, we want to be promoting the album. But the number one focus for us is, more than anything, is let's just write the best album that we possibly can, and let's get that album recorded. And then so we're not worrying too much about what's going to happen after that, because I'm sure that the world's going to figure this all out eventually. And then so once we get that album and that's all done, then we just make a plan from there. But the number one thing for us is that we've got a lot of fans now from our EP, and we just want to make sure that when they listen to this album, they're completely blown away. So that's our number one focus.
Is it difficult to write when you're doing the same things all the time? I know a lot of people need inspiration by just living life and the different experiences they encounter. What was that like for you guys?
Well, in a way, we kind of things haven't really changed for us. New Zealand's lockdown was relatively short, 4 or 5, 6 weeks or something. Dan, I just got him to stay at my place, so we were literally just drinking and playing guitar and the whole time and writing songs together during lockdown. And then so I think that inspiration for us is something that we all have so much to tell. We all have so many life experiences. We all have so much stuff that's already happened to us out there in the world. And then the last year was just such a crazy year for us that, we already have so much in us that we need to get out anyway. So, right now it's one of those things that we're definitely not short of inspiration. I guess we're lucky in that way where we all seem to be able to just find, that we just dig deep and find something and write about it.
When you consider, kind of what 2021 is right around the corner, do you view 2021 as kind of like 2020 part 2, or just throw 2020 in the garbage and just kind of prepare for what's going to happen in the new year and keep your fingers crossed that it's all positive?
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I think of 2021, I think of Black Smoke Trigger's debut album. That in my head that's likely when we're going to get over and record it, and that's when we're going to be releasing it. And to me, 2021 is resoundingly positive, because no matter what happens in the world, there is still people listening to rock music. There are still people watching music videos, and there are still people, wanting to engage, wanting to connect with music. And no matter what the landscape's like when we're able to release this album, we've already seen, obviously we can't go out there and tour, but as we've had the EP out, and then throughout this time, the new fans coming in hasn't slowed down. And then so once we release the album, I don't imagine that'll happen either. It's one of those things that if we were to go out and tour, we can only play in person to a small number of people anyway, compared to the big wide world. And then so I guess we can look at it in a positive, where we're focusing on just building our band awareness, getting more people to listen to our music, and then so that once we can actually get out there and tour, we've got more people wanting to come and see us live. And the more people that are at the shows, it's like, the energy just grows and grows and grows. And so that's really what it's about for us. So to me, I look at 2021 as it's going to be a really positive year.
As far as New Zealand goes, is there places where you guys can play now? Is that allowed since you guys have had so few cases?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we've actually turned down a whole bunch of offers to play just because we wanted to really focus on the album. And there's, there are bands out there touring. Devil Skin they're touring next month, and so we could definitely be out there and playing. New Zealand is a great country, and we absolutely love it here. In the grand scheme of things, you can't play here too much because it's it's such a small place, and so we really want to be getting out there and playing internationally as soon as we can. And then so it's while we could be out here playing and having a whole lot of fun, because we definitely have a whole lot of fun when we get out there and play. We're just looking at it like, right, well, what's the best use of our time right now? And that's writing this album, because every time we get a new song, I mean, the first time we finish jamming it, at least one of the guys, if it's not me, it's someone else, says, I can't wait to play this one live, because that's what we all really do it for, is that connection when we're actually performing live. Like right now, it's obviously a little bit limited, but while there are places to play, we just really wanted to make sure that once that those doors open, that we're not just playing here in New Zealand, that we're out there stomping around the world, playing these new tunes to everybody.
Rock and roll is different than generations past in the fact that it's struggling for relevancy. Rock and roll will never die. There'll always be people playing it in clubs, in theaters, and on stages across the globe. However, when you look at how new rock is struggling to get an audience because people prefer classic rock, especially people in my demographic. Not that I prefer it. I love listening to new music, but they want to hear what, the songs that they know and the comfort level that they have. I love the fact that there's so many new great bands out there right now, such as Black Smoke Trigger. Right underneath the surface, ready to punch through. How do you feel about the state of rock and roll?
Well, the way I feel about the state of rock and roll is that people are looking for, something to connect to. But, nothing is going to connect you more to music than music that you grew up listening to. And so a lot of our fans are people who, grew up listening to bands that we know, like, and love, and we're listening to on a daily basis, and we're wanting to go to see these shows. And then so it's one of those things that, people aren't as open to listening to a new band unless that band is really, really going to cut through. And, if a great band is, it releases a song that people connect with, then I believe that it doesn't matter about that kind of stuff. The wall's going to be broken down, and then that band is going to end up being relevant. No matter who it is. And then so I think that obviously the easiest way for people talk about will rock come back with a vengeance and that kind of stuff. And I think that's one of those things that the music has to be good enough and compelling enough for the kids to really dive into it. I mean, you look at like Ozzy Osbourne talking, you listen to Angus Young talking, back in the day, they'd always just be talking about the kids, because the kids were the ones listening to the music, growing up with that, and then they're still listening to the music now. Everybody loves the music that they grew up listening to. And then so, right now, it's really interesting for us where we're getting a young audience start listening to us, because obviously we are a new band. And then so there are people that are going to be growing up listening to Black Smoke Trigger. And there's also, people that are more our age and older who grew up listening to other music that hear us and are starting to add us to their playlist in the mix with these other great bands. And then so it's definitely like something that's a little bit different. I mean, you look at like hip hop and rap music is obviously hugely popular with younger demographics. I mean, you even look at like the top 10 songs there's usually not many rock songs or any rock songs at all in there. And then so that's the way that I'm kind of looking at it, is that, I mean, as long as we've got young fans listening to us, then that's going to be the longevity, because someone who likes music that we like, and likes influences, that they'll probably like our music. Will they be as open to it as someone who's just discovering rock music? Can Black Smoke Trigger be the band that kids discover and fall in love with rock, and then do what I did and go start looking back at Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath? I think that I look at it in the way of like, rock bands need to be now focusing on opening the door for the younger generations, because if we are opening the door to the younger generations, I mean, you and I both know how much great rock music's out there. It's just, we got to just knock on the door with songs that are good enough, songs that connect enough, that are new and that are relevant. And from there, I think that's going to help build things up.
If you get a fan when they're young, they'll be a fan of yours forever. I mean, that's just the reality of it. They're going to grow up with you, listening to your music. So that's so important. Forget the classic rock fan. The classic rock fan is not the demographic you want to go after. It's the young kids in junior high, high school, going into college that you want to connect with. And my next question on this is kind of like a philosophy. Some people have, some people don't. But isn't it also important for Black Smoke Trigger to just keep playing rock music and writing good songs and do what they need to do in terms of building an audience, no matter what the state of rock and roll is? Because if it's good enough, people will come listen anyway.
Absolutely, man. The thing is that the four of us just love playing. It's like, this is what we do full time. And so no matter what, no matter what's happening, no matter, like how many shows we're playing, no matter how many albums we end up getting to do, the number one thing for us is that we're in this for the long haul. And, it's like, it's almost cathartic for us. Like if I wasn't playing rock music, I really don't know what else I would be doing. So this is something that I have to do. Just so happens to be in a band called Black Smoke Trigger.
And it's, important that, if you guys keep releasing great material like you are, people will find you. People will want to listen to it. It doesn't matter, if pop music or rap music is the most popular. Let's just say that's always going to be the case. But, you look at the band Rival Sons, for instance. Rival Sons has been around for 10 years plus. And people are finally starting to discover them, on a national, global level. And they're saying, how come I didn't know about this band? And that's why it's so important to keep listening to new music, because you're being exposed to stuff that is different, although you can hear the influences of the bands that we all listen to. But I don't want a band like Black Smoke Trigger or a band like Dirty Honey or whoever it is to, 5-6 years ago, oh, this band is great. How come I didn't hear about it? That's why we need to keep listening. I often say that as a rock fan, we need to give back. And it's not like giving in terms of a dollar or money or monetary means, but it's giving back to the genre by listening to what's new, because that genre gave us so much in terms of our memories and our life that we owe it to that genre to keep supporting it and keep supporting the newer bands and the newer music that's coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it's one of those things. I didn't listen to new music for a long time because I was kind of like stuck in my own world, like my own, where I was pretending like I was living in the 70s almost, then I was pretending like I was living in the 80s just because of the music that I was listening to. But being now, listening to bands like, Rival Sons, Dirty Honey, like you mentioned, friends of ours like Storm and Devil Skin, they're still releasing, music. Like these bands are still on their way up and still, so early in their careers. And, it's one of those things that people are loving this music. Even though it's not, for instance, like selling the millions and millions of albums like, this genre was in, like the early 90s, for instance, there's still quality music being released, every day. So I like that, the ethos you have of, giving back and listening to music, because they're passionate musicians, just like there were passionate musicians in the 70s, 80s, 90s. There's passionate musicians today pouring their heart and soul into music, and that music's only just getting released.
I agree. Well, Charlie, it has been a blast talking with you about rock music, talking with you about Black Smoke Trigger. Thank you very much for doing this.
Hey, thank you so much, Matt. It's been great chatting. And, yeah, man, can't wait to send you a copy of this album once we got it.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it too as well. And when you're down in Nashville, if you do some shows down there, I will definitely come and check you guys out. It's only about, I think, like a 9-hour drive or an 8-hour drive, so it's not that bad. But I definitely will make the trip if you guys come down there and play a couple gigs.
Fantastic. Sounds great.
Well, that's Charlie Wallace from the band Black Smoke Trigger. I'm Jay Scott. This is the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Stay healthy, and we will talk again soon. Take care.
Of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
All because of a fancy bike?
It's not just a bike. Peloton makes treadmills too.
All treadmills are the same.
Our treadmills can adjust speed and incline automatically, so you never break your stride. Whether you're squeezing in a power walk or training for a marathon, Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try the Peloton Tread risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.